Greetings. I'm sure you've been looking through the material that I've posted for you and might have found it a little hard going when it came to two of the most important concepts in Hinduism, two concepts that are really very difficult to understand, and those are Atman and Brahman. Brahman is fundamentally what exists in Hinduism. You could think of it as ultimate reality. It's called sometimes superabundance, superconsciousness. And in the very evolved teachings of Hinduism, which you could call Brahmanism, there is not a world, or we don't inhabit a world that is divided into two, but rather just one. What exists is one. And that one is Brahman. Brahman is not a god or a deity, doesn't have a body or cannot be represented sensibly in that way, very unlike the monotheisms. So even though sometimes you'll hear in Hinduism Brahman referred to as God, they mean by that really the ultimate existence, that which ultimately exists. And of course, we are also not an aspect of that one. I started to say an aspect of that one, but Brahman doesn't have aspects or parts. It's one thing. In monotheisms, you might have, say, the world and God. So you have two things, the material world and then God, who is immaterial. But in Brahman, there are no separate things. There's only just Brahman. So you might ask, well, how can that be? What is this? And that really is a very, very good question in Hinduism. What is all this? And what ultimately am I? And what I am is really the journey, realizing who I am, is the fundamental journey of Hinduism. So in Hinduism, that which we see around us, things and objects and other people, and that which we refer to when we say I, myself, those things are not real. They are an illusion. And this it sort of blows the top of your head off if you try to think about this. How can it be that I exist and yet I'm not real? It isn't, as it turns out, that I don't exist, but that my understanding or my consciousness of my existence is confused. So in Hinduism, the world around us is really made up of an illusion, or it is an illusion, because of the nature of our consciousness in this unevolved state that we live in. In that reality, which is an illusion, is called Maya, M-A-Y-A, and it is not real. My consciousness is ensnared by this Maya and is caught like in a web. And so I'm under the impression that everything I'm seeing and doing, looking at my devices and playing with my dog and playing my musical instruments and reading my books, that these are all actually real, when in fact they are an illusion, something that comes about by way of the nature of my unevolved consciousness. The way for consciousness to evolve is to turn inward. In Hinduism, that's called Raja Yoga, and it allows consciousness to evolve through paying attention instead to what is more real, that which is inside, rather than the Maya, the illusion that has ensnared us. So in Hinduism, you turn inward and you begin to experience, not have faith, but experience that yourself is not truly real. Self that I've thought of as so crucial turns out to be not real, not true. And it is said in the tradition that when we encounter this ego self, we know that it's not real because we encounter a self that we immediately know with certainty truly is real. And that self is called Atman. And so Atman is the true self, unlike Maya, unlike the ego self that we've been taking for true. The true self is Atman. It is instead the true self. As it is described, upon turning inward, one not only experiences the true self as separate from the ego self, but one also realizes, maybe with a flash, that Atman is Brahman, that my true self is Brahman, is God. I don't know, but it only seems to me that that would be a pretty cool experience, to suddenly experience Brahman.